Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Coffee Time. I am your host, Byron. Alongside me is former Major League pitcher Blake Stein. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. How are you tonight?
I'm great, Byron. Just enjoying the new school year where I'm a principal at and chasing my kids around with sports. So it's a good time.
Yeah, I feel you. I got two of my own, and they're only young ones, so I feel you, man. It feels like they were not even born not too long ago when I got two. One's going to be 9, and the other one's going to be 6 this year. So yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I can't believe it. And the youngest one just started school this year.
Yep. So my three oldest girls are all out of high school. Two have graduated college and one's in college. And then my oldest son's a senior in high school. And my youngest one's a sixth grader. So we just had football practice for him.
Well, there you go. You see, like I said, you know how it is. They're
Yep.
only young ones. So, I mean,
That's right.
um, so yeah, let's get right to it. Before we get into your career, I'm going to start off with some current topics, if you don't mind, because I'm sure you
Okay.
still follow it. Um, yeah. So obviously, in your time as a pitcher, they didn't have this whole thing to speed up the game with pitch clock, you know, catchers relaying the pitcher pitching signs by uh, earwaves now. You being a former pitcher in that era, I've asked this to another couple former pitchers I've had in that era as well. I'm 50. I've had 50-50 response on it. That some like it, some don't. What's your stance on it? Did you wish you had it when you were pitching? Do you not like it? How is it? Your
Well,
stance.
I didn't mind the pitch clock when I was in college. I played in Alaska in a collegiate league, and the NBC World Series that we played at in Wichita had a pitch clock and a clock in between innings. So I had a little bit of experience with it, which was good for me. It helped me speed up my routine between pitches. And so for me, it was more about the guys not getting in the batter's box. I mean, I didn't take too much time in between pitches, but I was more of a guy that wanted guys to get back in the batter's box. And so the pitch clock really wouldn't have bothered me much. Now, getting the signals through the earpieces, I know they're doing it for the pace of the game, but I thought that was kind of the chess match. I like the idea of having to change up your signs or come up with a scheme that they couldn't pick up pitches from second base. And so I like that part of the game. So I coached high school baseball for a little while, and we used the pitch com. And as a pitching coach, it was nice to be able to do that. But it's for me as a pitcher, I kind of like the chess game of trying to hide the pitches and mix up the signals.
In a way, I kind of agree with you on that. I mean, I didn't. Obviously, I was never good enough to play. I only played little league. But if I was a pitcher, even I know better. Not being in any level I was, except for little league. If you're not smart enough or dumb enough to hide the ball and you let the batter see what you're throwing, that's on you, man. Not
Right.
the
No, I
pitcher.
agree. I mean, I like that part of it. I liked having to change it up where you had to give different signs, and so I like that part of the game. I like that aspect of it.
Exactly. So see, you're one. So like I said, I've had mixed opinions on it. Some say they don't, some say they do. So that's why I wanted to ask you on that. I'm glad you answered that to a
Yep.
T. You could have said it any better. Um, so now, like I ask every pitcher, I'm going to ask you the same thing too. Every pitcher, either either starter or bullpen, has a routine. What was yours before the game?
Well, I mean, for my routine, it was um, I'd always go out at the same time and then throw in the outfield. But the bigger part of my routine was in the bullpen. Um, it was five pitches, five fastballs away, five fastballs in, five fastballs middle, five changeups, then a fastball, then five breaking balls, and then I'd go to the stretch. I'd do the same thing with threes, and then I would work a right-hander and a left-hander, whichever, or the first two hitters in the lineup. And then after that, I'd leave the bullpen. But it took me a while to learn that routine. When I first got there, into the big leagues, I felt like I had to have my best stuff leaving the bullpen, and so I might throw 100 pitches down there before I went out there, and so I had to have some veteran. I had Tom Candiotti and Kenny Rogers were a couple veteran pitchers on the Oakland team, and talked to me about that, about saving your bullets for the game.
Not a bad routine, if I say so
No.
myself.
So, but once I figured out the routine, I stuck to that, and that worked for me. And so, it's different. And so the thing was, it let you focus on things. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. You weren't wishy-washy about what you were doing down in the bullpen. So you knew your routine, and you could really focus and start to lock in on what you were trying to do that day.
Now, obviously, I know you weren't around in the league yet during the strike of 94, 95, I think it was, that ended the ended that season in World Series. I hate to say this, but I think this is going back and down the rabbit hole again, especially with what Harper said to Manfred in the locker room. That with what that's not a good thing going that way.
Right.
When he said "get the f out," and do you think, unfortunately, another strike's going to happen? Because honestly, with Harper's reaction, that unfortunately, I think that's going to happen. Unfortunately.
Well, right. And so my first spring training was the year they came back and they were still on strike. And so we were down in minor league camp, and I know a lot of players were asked to be replacement players during that spring training. And so, and then when I was in Kansas City, we were, as far as the team goes, we were able to come up with a collective bargaining agreement to avoid a strike. And so, the biggest thing with the players union is that if revenues for baseball is going up, then salaries should continue to go up. And so we don't want to have anything that's going to limit that. So I think that's why a lot of times they look at a salary cap as, if revenues in baseball are going up, the salaries will not be able to go up. And so I think that's why they're very reluctant to do that. And so, and a lot of it does too. If you do that, you end up paying, 2 or 3 guys a ton of money. And then some of the younger guys are the ones that get to play, and it cuts out your middle guys, your backup infielders, your fourth outfielders, your backup catchers, your middle relievers, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot more to it than just, the cap as being a negative.
Now, do you see it happening again? Like when you said you were part of it in the minors and being called up, but do you see it happening again?
I don't know. I don't know. You don't want to put all your thoughts into what one player says to the commissioner. And so, it was pretty heated for what he said, but he may not be speaking for everybody. He might just be speaking for, the way he feels. And so it may not be that everybody feels that way. I do think that they're going to try to combat having a salary cap of any type. So, it'll be interesting. Every time the collective bargaining agreement comes up and there's a negotiation, it seems like that there's more of a tendency towards a strike possibly happening as opposed to an agreement being reached.
Now, obviously, it's your opinion and my opinion, obviously, too. That's why I asked this, too. It's just opinion-based because you don't know and I don't know. But in your honest opinion, do you think there should be a salary cap, though, to make it fair for all these teams?
I don't think there's necessarily a salary cap. I mean, it's like if you start to put a cap on things, where do you put the cap? And so how does that affect current contracts that have been signed? All of a sudden, you've got these guys that have signed these huge contracts. They put a salary cap. It really is going to handicap how you can spend the rest of your money for those teams. And so I think that if it's something that they're looking at possibly doing, and there's going to have to be some grace period, I think, as to being able to implement it. It's from a player standpoint, you don't want to have your salary restricted. But from the game standpoint, that you have to understand that there's sometimes some overspending that's going on, and they need to get that a little bit under control. But it is what the market is. If they're willing to pay that to a player, then so be it.
Now, let's talk about your 2 former teams that you played for, the Royals and Oakland. Right. Let's talk about the Royals first. What do you think they need to do to get back to their World Series years? Because they've been close the last few years to playoffs, but they haven't gone nowhere. What do you think they need to do to get over that hump?
Well, I think what got them to the World Series is they really did a good job in their farm system and bringing up their home talent, and then finding those few free agents that filled the needs that they needed. And so I think that's the blueprint for their success. They're not going to be able to go out and spend a ton of money in free agency, and so it's just trying to keep the guys that are successful on their team, and then filling in the holes as best they can, but trying to do it through their farm system and not through free agency. I think that's probably works best for them.
They've had a decent year this year. Do you think they can have a chance to? I think they're 3 or 4 games behind in the
wild card.
Do you think they have a possible chance of making it this year?
Well, I think so. I mean, you've got a good core group of guys, and it all comes down to when you get hot, especially late. So we're just past the All-Star break, and so if they get on a streak and they win 10 or 12 out of 15, it's going to be real easy for them to make the playoffs. And so, but at the same time, you've got to avoid that slump. You can't lose 10 or 12 out of 15. You've really got to go out and maintain it for the rest of the year so that you can make the playoffs.
I worry about pitching, though, don't you? Their hitting's fine. I think it's
right.
Their pitching.
Well, and pitching throughout the big leagues, I mean, you don't see starting pitchers go beyond 6 or 7 innings. I mean,
you read me to my next question. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Mm-hmm.
It's almost like who has the better middle relievers, because they're going to get their starter to go 4 or 5 innings and then they're going to the bullpen. Whereas you look at the teams that were doing so well for so long. You look at the Braves, you look at the Yankees back when I was playing, and they had 4 starters that they could throw out there, and they were going to go deep into the game.
Yeah.
And so you didn't know about their middle guys. You knew about their starters, you knew about their setup guys, and you knew about their closers. And so the game has changed in that aspect. And so it's not that I like it. I like the fact that when a starter goes out there, they should be able to go 115, 120 pitches if need be to get to the 8th or 9th inning. But they just don't do that anymore. The guys are really limited on the number of throws they get and the number of innings they can throw.
Yeah, and you read, before I get to I'm sorry, I'm still going to call them this because they are, to me, that's what I grew up with, the Oakland A's. So before I get with that,
right.
Yeah, I was going to ask you until you got into it. I was going to ask you about that. You obviously you pitched where starters did that, and that's the era I grew up on too. Why do you think that is? Do you think that's pitcher based, that they don't want that? I know it's analytics driven, obviously, by front office, but do you think it's also to pitchers, they don't want to anymore because 1, they throw hard, and obviously Tommy John, and 2, they just don't feel like they can go that anymore because of the hitters.
Right. I think that pitchers, that used to be pitchers were trained for endurance, to try to get, I mean, the mentality of all the guys when I pitched was it was their game to finish. They started and it was their game to finish. There was no getting through 5 or getting through 6, but there weren't many people that I know of, if any, that were trained or brought up to throw as hard every time out, max effort every pitch.
Right.
And so that was something that was, kind of reserved for your closers, your setup guys that came in, and those were your really, at the time, the harder throwers. But you didn't see your starters going out throwing every single pitch with max effort. And so in that aspect, I mean, I don't know if I went out max effort every single pitch, if I could make it to 9 innings. And so it's tough on the body, and but that's what the game is calling for now, for guys to go out there and throw 100 miles an hour for as long as you can. If that's 3, 4, maybe 5 innings, and so be it. We'll come bring another guy in throwing 100 miles an hour right behind him.
And this is where I'm sure you can agree with me on this. This is where it's gone too analytic based, because everybody will remember this, and I'm sure you'll remember it because you still follow it like I do. Back in 2020, the Rays, Blake Snell cost them, in my opinion, the World Series.
100% agree.
And I don't blame him for being, excuse my French, but I don't care. This can also be explicit podcast as well. I don't care. You can cuss too. I don't care. But I try not to, but still, regardless, it comes up. This really pissed Blake Snell off, and I don't blame him because he was dominating.
He was. I mean, I have no idea. And I think it was like 70 pitches. I don't even think it was even close to 100.
It wasn't that many pitches.
And they took him out, and I'm watching it and I was losing my mind. I'm going, why in the world are they taking this guy out right now? You work your entire off season. You work hard during the season so that you can be in a position if you get to the playoffs, to be able to be in that situation, to pitch 7, 8, 9 innings. The days of Jack Morris throwing 10 innings in a game 7 are long gone. I don't think you'll ever see that again.
Nope.
But that is the mentality of the game now.
Yeah, he's one of the few that I think if you wanted to leave him in, he would pitch that full 9.
Sure.
And like I said, I don't blame him for being pissed. He was lights out. They weren't even touching him.
No. And like you said, if you're in the playoffs and you're starting to get hit around a little bit and you don't have a lot of pitches, okay, I get it. You get taken out. But when you're dealing, I don't care. At that point, there should be no pitch count.
Right.
I mean, because he's probably not going to pitch again the rest of the series. And so, go ahead and use it. And so I just it's a different type of game now than what it was even just, 15 years ago.
And don't give me this BS like they did at the end. Saying, it's because, he was on a 5-inning pitch thing, no matter how many pitches he threw or dominating, because he's coming back from injury. BS. Come on.
Well, and there's a certain point when you do come back from an injury that you build up to it. You don't go out and all of a sudden you first start throw 120 pitches. You build up to it, but
he was building up throughout the playoffs. So,
he
was all ready to go. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's difficult, and it's difficult to watch when a guy's pitching well and then they take him out and bring somebody in. Because I love to watch a well pitched game. I'd much rather watch a 1-1, 2-1 game going into the 9th inning than a 11-9 game.
So since I got to ask you then, since you coached it, you sort of, I know you didn't coach it obviously that way, but you know about the analytics and how analytics is driven. Why do you think the game has gone to that? Why do you think nerd-wise it's gone to that? Because, and this can be said for other sports too.
Well, I was about to say it's not just and baseball is probably the bigger number game than all the other sports, and so there's more stats and more data for you to use in baseball. But for all the sports, they're all data driven. And so I think part of it comes down to the second guessing that comes when a manager makes a gut decision rather than an analytical decision, and they get second guessed on it. And it's cost managers their jobs and things like that. So I think that they can always fall back on saying, well, I just did what the numbers said to do. And that's what management wanted us to do. They wanted us to play by the numbers, and that's what we did. So it kind of takes the gut feeling, I've got a feeling about this guy, getting this right, righty on righty or lefty on lefty. And instead of going to the La Russa ways of pitching where he would have 5 pitching changes in a row to get the righty on righty or lefty on lefty, it kind of eliminates any kind of feel or actually how the guy's doing that game.
And I think you pretty much just answered my next question too, before too, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So obviously you're like me, you hate the whole relief pitcher thing where they got to face 3 batters minimum.
Right. But my thing is a baseball game is going to be, they're trying to slow it down and everything they've done to try to speed the game up. They've gained 7 minutes, off the game. And so what are you doing really? You're just changing the game. And it is what it is. The purest part of the game is just let the guys go out and let them do it. And if a manager wants to make 7 pitching changes, to make 7 pitching changes. That's 6 guys he can't use later in the game. That's his choice. And so, I miss that part of it. And I don't, necessarily agree with having to pitch to 3 hitters. Play the game.
And, I've seen it slightly come back, and I know you have too. Guys like Chandler Simpson on my Rays, who's a speedster, and you got a couple others. You got some in San Diego, my other team. You got some like Fernando Tatis, who they just got 2 in a trade from Orioles, Laureano, who can speed. Do you see that coming back into the game slowly but surely as well? Because that was going away. That was going away too, where it was just walk, strikeout, or home run.
Well, and a lot of it was I got to play with Ricky Henderson in Oakland, and just to watch, knowing he was going to be on base and knowing he was going to steal just made the game more exciting, that was going to be a part of it. And and not just to steal second, he might steal third, and then. But you do see a lot more guys stealing more bases. Now they're never going to get to the point of the Vince Colemans and the I'm trying to think of who else, Ricky Henderson when they were stealing over 100 bags a year.
Right.
But you are starting to see a little bit more of that in the game. But then again, the strikeouts are up, home runs are up, but strikeouts are up. The averages are way down. And so they're playing for the 2 and 3 run home runs. So I do like the ability to steal. I like to. You're never going to see many more bunting teams, but coming up with the Cardinals through the minor leagues, we were huge on pitching and defense. Putting the ball in play, making things happen, and so that's kind of the brand of baseball that I was trained to do, and that's the kind of I really like to watch.
Now, before I get into my loyal viewer has a question for you too. Thank you, loyal viewer, for asking this, but let me ask this first. Obviously, you dealt. I wanted to get into your other team, like you said, Oakland. To me, they're always Oakland. I'm sure they are to you as well. You dealt with that owner whose now son has taken over and disgraced that team to its fullest. I'm sure Daddy would be rolling in his grave right now. But that so being said, I'm sure you hate it as well. That what's he doing to the team and having them play where they're playing right now. I know Sacramento's being nice, and so is the Giants for letting them play there. But this is ridiculous. I mean, just get the stadium done deal, fix the stadium up or whatever. I mean, what he did to the fan base there is ridiculous. They had already lost 2 other teams, and you just took away their last team.
Right, and there's a lot more involved in it than just. I know for the longest time, even when I was playing back in '98, they were trying to come up with, places to build a stadium and to renovate it to keep up with the Joneses, to sort of say, with all the other stadiums that were being built, and depending upon where you are, a lot of it was, the owner put in some amount of money towards it. Other times it was completely, state or city built, and they used it for other reasons. But it's the whole stadium issue is a big deal, because when you have an older stadium and you see all these brand new stadiums with all these new amenities coming up, it's difficult. It's like one of the biggest travesties I ever think they did was tear down old Yankee Stadium. I don't know why they didn't renovate that. It's kind of the cathedral of stadiums. But that goes to tell you the market for building a new stadium that's up to date. And so and Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City has done a good job of being able to continue to have modern amenities with still a kind of a classic stadium.
But I heard they're also fighting too, though.
They are. I read an article where there were about 4 different locations they were looking at trying to build, and so, but it is what it is. People want the new stadiums. They want the fancy. They want the craft beers and the specialty foods and the lounges with the Wi-Fi and everything else. And so it's more of a more all-around experience where, I like to go to the game and watch the game.
Did you deal with the data at all? I know owners don't really get involved that much, but it seems like some owners nowadays tend to, so that's why I'm asking.
No, not really. I think I had one conversation with him one time, and I think it was not even really a conversation. I think he might have just been in the locker room, but he wasn't around a whole lot. Billy Beane did whatever talking needed to be done, and then of course Art Howell, the manager, was the main guy that we spoke to. But we didn't get involved in the politics of the stadium and everything else. It was kind of out of our control, really. We didn't have anything to do with it. And so we were just worried about what we could do on the field and still staying on the team.
Now, before I get back to the Oakland thing, because I also want to ask you about Curran, how they can do that too, without the owner aside. So my guy has a question for you. He wants you to talk about these 3 players that went 0 for 10 against you and no walk. Now, tell me about this. That's because I'm thinking that's what he wants you to talk about. Ventura Vaughn, and Cameron, who are all three good players. Because
Right.
that's the era I grew up on, so I remember those guys. So tell us about that.
Well, Ventura, I'm surprised about that. With him being left-handed, I'm surprised that that he didn't have a hit off of me. But that lineup was pretty tough because you had Magdalene Ordonez, Ray Durham, Frank Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Oh my goodness, who else was on that team?
Adam Dunn, I think.
No, I don't know if
there.
Adam Dunn was there. Albert Bell was on that team when I pitched against them.
Yep.
So they had a pretty good hitting lineup. So I'm surprised by that. Mo Vaughn was a little bit easier to pitch to because if you could pitch him inside, you were fine. And hard and soft away, and really didn't want to give him anything to hit. We were not going to let him beat us.
Mm-hmm.
And who was the third one? Mike Cameron.
Yeah.
Now I'd faced Mike Cameron through the minor leagues too, so I knew a little bit about him, and so I had a little bit of a book on him and how to pitch him. But he was still a tough out. There was no doubt that when those guys came up, you had to be on your game, otherwise you were going to get hurt.
Without a doubt. I hate to say I know they're not going to be, but honestly, my opinion, I think those three should be Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and it's
a subject. But
well, because the game has changed so much. You're never going to get another pitcher that gets to magic 300 wins. That's just not going to happen as much anymore. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see a career 300 hitter hardly anymore.
Right.
And so some of the milestones that people had to reach to get to the Hall of Fame, you're going to see guys get in that don't have those numbers. And so it's really going to spark a lot of controversy for guys that maybe batted 308 for a career but didn't get in, but then you have a 270 hitter getting in because of the change of the baseball eras. So
now current A's, regardless of the owner, they have an up and coming team. I like what I forget who the manager. Kotze has done through all this controversy. I like what he's done with the team. You've got Jack Wilson's son. God, I can't believe it. I feel like I know you're getting old, but I feel like I'm old. Watching these guys' sons come up when I watch their dads play.
Right.
You got his kid on that team. You got Langoliers. You got Rooker, who came from my Padres, who's having stellar years. So what can they do? And they got a good young core of pitching too coming up as well. What's it going to take for them to reach that next level? Because you're dealing with a tough division because the Astros are still always going to be good.
Right.
And of course you have Bochy. I don't know how long he's going to manage, but as long as he's there, the Rangers are still always in contention.
Right. And the A's seem to always have really good young players on their team. And so it was just a matter of keeping them and being able to, once they got through their formative years of proving themselves and they get to free agency of being able to keep them. And that was the problem that Oakland always had was being able to keep guys when they got up to free agent status. And so if they were able to keep those guys, they would have been a lot more success, but there just wasn't the revenue from that area. And maybe moving to Vegas is something that's going to help give them the ability to keep those star players on their team and have them be more successful.
Now, is that also too, like when you obviously you dealt with Billy Beane, because like you say, he was there when you were there and you guys made those playoff teams. Do you think it also could be general manager based as well? Because Billy Beane's a certified, now manager. I mean, not manager, but GM who always got the players, got what he needed, cutthroat. I mean, I know it all goes back to the owner, but can you see this general manager going up against the owner though and doing this? Because they haven't really done anything trade wise or free agency wise, I think, to help.
Well, and that's what I think what made Billy so successful was he knew what he had to deal with, and so he didn't try to make it what it wasn't. He knew he had limited resources, and so he did the best he could with what he had. And so, but I think that's what the difference in Vegas is. You're not going to have, like most other stadiums or teams you go to, they have a loyal fan base. Well, Vegas is such a tourist area they're gonna generate crowds based upon interest in the stadium, not necessarily in the team itself. And so,
Right.
with that
Right.
increased revenue, it might be good for them to be able to then put that back into the team and keep some of their young talent on that team instead of them leaving after free agency.
And I hope you're right too. I mean, I hope they can deal with not dealing with this owner, and I hope they can go against him and stick it up him. But we'll see how it happens.
Yeah,
You
and so
that's all we can do. So, I want to get into a little bit of your career. Uh, you were obviously, like you said, you were drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in '94, 6th round amateur draft. Tell us about that whole experience being drafted. What was it like for you? And do you remember how you ended up getting scouted?
Well, I was at a small college in Mobile, Alabama, Spring Hill College, and after my sophomore year, um, I got the invitation to go play in Alaska, and so I played for the Anchorage Glacier Pilots, and we had several guys that ended up making the big leagues. Darren Dreifert was on that team, Jamie Bluma. Um, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting some names right now, but I'll think of them. Brett Hemphill was another one that made it to the big leagues, and so. But there were several guys off that team that got drafted and got to the big leagues. But with Darren Dreifert being the #1 overall pick that year, we had lots of scouts at a lot of our games, especially when we went to the NBC World Series in Wichita. And so with that increased visibility to the scouts, I pitched real well. And so I kind of got put on the radar. And then my junior year, they came and saw. I mean, every game I pitched my junior year, there were tons of scouts at all those games. And so I did end up getting hurt. It was just a muscle pull my junior year, so it kind of hurt my draft status. But my scout, Roger Smith, told me it's not about when you get drafted, it's about if you get drafted. And now you just go out and prove to everybody that you can do it. And so it was, I think it was a great organization to be drafted by, was the Cardinals, because they focus so much on pitching. And it kind of developed me from a thrower and more into a pitcher. And so, had great teammates throughout St. Louis, still keep in touch with some of them. But then, getting traded kind of rocked my world. And so, went from a pitching and defensive heavy team where we were always maybe last in hitting, but first in pitching and defense, to an organization that was first in hitting and first in run score, but last in pitching. Was a big shakeup for me.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you this, but then you got into it. Now, tell me if this is true that I'm seeing. This could be, to me, one of the biggest bust trades ever. You were traded. Tell me if this is true, if you remember this. You were traded in '97, the day of the deadline. You, Eric Wedlick, and TJ Matthews. Yep, to the Oakland Athletics for then Mark McGwire, which turned out to be a bust for the Cardinals, if I remember correctly. Because no offense to you guys, but look what he ended up being. I know it was steroid based, obviously, but he ended up taking the Cardinals to a whole nother level, and then the A's just.
Yep.
Nothing against you guys, but
no. Look, I get reminders every year on the trade deadline about they talk about some of the worst trades in Major League Baseball history, and so it is what it is. I was able to go over to a team, and within a year, I was able to make it back to the big leagues, where I was probably 2 or 3 or 4 years away from ever getting a chance in St. Louis because they were so loaded in pitching. Right. And so for me, the opportunity really presented itself for me to go to a team where I could really advance through the organization. So now it didn't ultimately turn into playoff runs. Now, unfortunately, after I got traded to Kansas City from Oakland made the playoffs after that too. So, but it was an exciting time. It was a funny story. We were in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was in AA, and got traded, and so a bunch of us went out that night to go have a few beers, celebrate, and say our goodbyes and everything else. And the waitress or the bartender at the bar decided that they knew more about baseball than us and didn't believe that I was traded for Mark McGwire, and we ended up drinking for free that night. So
there you go.
Yeah. So I had to put it on ESPN to verify, and it was pretty cool when I saw my name go across the ticker.
Is that how you found out?
Well, no, I found out I was supposed to start the first game after the All-Star break. I was at the
Okay.
AA All-Star game and
Gotcha.
was told I wasn't going to pitch in the AA All-Star game, which I just sat around and did nothing. And then I was supposed to start the first game back, and then was told I was not starting, and got called in. And it seemed like most of my teammates knew that I was getting traded before I did. So found out, and then got traded and flew from there to Birmingham, as a matter of fact, to play the White Sox, and then was with the Huntsville Stars for the rest of that year, and then went to the Arizona Fall League, and then the next year I was called up in May.
Now, what's it like? Now, I know I've had some people on here that have been traded. It didn't really matter to them. It did matter to them. How did it matter to you? Because I know you got to move family and all this. Like, what's it like actually being traded though? Does that suck? Do you want to stay with the team? What's it like though being traded? Because honestly, that's got to suck. Because you ultimately, don't you have to move your family?
Right. And so I got married. I got married in '96, in December of '96, and then got traded in July of '97. So I was just newly married. So my wife Ellen was with me in AA, and for me it was easy. I got on a plane and flew to the next place and was playing. For her, she was the one that had to go back and close the lease and pack everything up and move across the country and do everything else. And so, there were a lot of really good friends that I'd left behind, but at the same time, it's a business. You get to the next place and start making new connections there and doing things so that you can be successful. And but for the players, it's the difficulty is just going to a new team. It's the family you leave behind that has to pack up and move over to the next city and get ready for that.
Now, you made your debut '98 for the Oakland Athletics. After you got traded, tell us about that whole experience. Did you have goosebumps? Who gave you the call up? Who talked to you about that? And just tell us all about that whole experience, about your first major league call up and experience.
Sure. I started out the year in AAA in Edmonton, Canada, and we were in Vancouver. We were on the road, and I was supposed to be pitching that night. And my roommate came in and started jumping up and down on the bed saying, "You're going to go to the big leagues." I'm like, "I'm not going to the big leagues. I'm pitching tonight." And he said, "Nope. They just told somebody else that they're pitching tonight." He says, "You're going to the big leagues." So nobody called me. Nobody told me anything. So I went to the ballpark at the same time, getting ready to pitch that night. And manager looked at me and says, "You don't know, do you?" And I'm like, "Well, everybody else seems to know, but nobody's officially told me anything." And so he calls me in and he handed me the starting lineup for the Chicago White Sox and said, "You're going to throw a bullpen today, and here's a scouting report on the White Sox. You're going to start on Sunday against them." And so it turned out to be a great deal because it was Mother's Day. So I was able to call my mom back home in Louisiana and asked them what they were doing for Mother's Day. And she said, "Oh, we're going to be cooking out on the grill. It's going to be great." And I said, "Well, you think you could put that off and fly to Oakland and watch me pitch?" And so
there you go.
My mom, my dad, my grandmother, my brother, my sister, their husbands and wives, and my college coach. So they all made it out for my debut. And so, it was a great day. And so, it was different. You read a scouting report and all of a sudden your name gets called and you're out on the mound, and Ray Durham's your first batter you have to face.
Good hitter. Bad.
Faced Ray Durham and struck him out. And then Magnolor Ordonez was the next hitter, struck him out. And then Frank Thomas came up and, was very fortunate and struck him out too. So struck out the side my first inning. And
nice. There you go. What a debut.
So it was a great debut. Through 7 innings, didn't give up an earned run, but got lost 3-2. We had 3 or 4 errors behind me that game, but I pitched real well. And at the time I didn't know if it was just a spot start and I was getting sent back down or if I was going to be up there. And so I think maybe after the way I pitched, it forced their hand to keep me up there. And I took my lumps my first year and pitched okay, but then really struggled towards the end of the year. The next year started down in AAA again, and then got traded to Kansas City, and then spent the rest of my big league career with Kansas City.
Now, as customary, obviously you get the ball after your first strikeout. Do you still have that ball to this day?
I didn't get the ball. They didn't roll it out or anything else like that.
Oh,
So I didn't
that
get a ball.
sucks.
I didn't get a ball from that game. I started against the White Sox in Chicago 5 days later and got the win there. Although Ray Durham hit a leadoff home run off of me to start that game, and but I got the win. I got that. I still have that baseball from that game.
Well, there you go. At least you got that. At least.
Yep.
Usually you get the strikeout. I'm surprised you didn't get one.
No, they didn't. They didn't keep that one. We kept it in play and went through it. And I get my first win, first save, first shutout. All of those baseballs I have up in my my man room, as I call it.
The man cave.
That's right, the man cave.
Again, like you got traded the first time on the trade deadline. You got traded again on the trade deadline in '99. That's when you said you went to Kansas City for with Jeff D'Amico. Yeah, and Brad Rigby for Kevin Appier, which honestly was an okay trade. Both teams didn't work out well for both teams. That turned out well. Tell us about that trade and how you remember that trade too, because that got you started to Kansas City as well, like you said.
Well, it was weird because I was in Vancouver in AAA and was pitching pretty well in AAA and hadn't got an opportunity to get called back up. And we got close to the trade deadline, and I got called up just a couple of days before the trade deadline and pitched against the Royals. And so then they said they were going to send me down back to the minor leagues. And, once I found that out, I had 3 days to report and was trying to find out my options and everything. And then found out that, Billy told me, he said, look, you're being traded. We're still working out the details of some other people. And so I kind of stayed put where I was until I found out the final deals of where I was going and that sort of thing. And then flew to Kansas City and joined them and kind of jumped in their rotation after a relief appearance and ended up spending about 3.5 years in Kansas City with a great organization, great teammates, great town. Loved everything about that time in Kansas City.
And my loyal fan was like, I don't know if you can see the comments, but he's like, after when you said about the guy that had the 4 errors, the team had 4 errors, he's like, too bad your shortstop couldn't field that day.
That was absolutely, he had 3 of them. And I had one. It was a ground ball that went back off my foot. I picked it up, threw it to first base, and I thought it was a pretty good throw. And but it got by Giambi at first, and they gave me the error being the rookie. So, yeah. But the shortstop, I won't say his name, but he had 3 errors that game that were pretty hurtful.
And I do remember I don't remember obviously the trade, but I do remember those Royals teams. Yeah, like you said, you had some good, talented teammates. You had Johnny Damon for a while. You had a young Carlos Beltran.
Jermaine Dye.
Jermaine Dye.
Joe Randa. Carlos Fabulous, Mike Sweeney. I mean, we had some pretty good players.
Yeah.
And so we just, I don't know. I don't think that I pitched as well as I probably could have.
That's right. I was just about to say, unfortunately, I don't think the pitching was,
I broke my wrist on a spring training game, got hit with a line drive and broke my wrist. And that set me back about 3 months of the season. So I missed out on that. And then a little bit later in my career, I tore a ligament in it was like I pulled a ligament off the groin muscle. It put me out for a while too. So, and then I had spurts where I'd pitch really well, but then I'd have spurts where I didn't pitch as well. And it was frustrating because it was such a good organization and great teammates not to have pitched as well as I thought that I could have.
What was it like playing with those guys? Those are future Hall of Famers.
Yeah, they were.
And you even dealt with some in Oakland too. What was it like playing with future Hall of Famers?
Well, Ricky Henderson's a whole different animal. Talking about him, there's so many stories, and I don't know all of them personally, but I could see absolutely 100% how they were all true. He does talk in the third person, but at the same time, when he's on the bench, he can watch a pitcher, and he'd walk by you and go, "I've got him," or he said, "Ricky's got him." and he would know exactly what that pitcher would do right before he would deliver, and that's why he would just get incredible jumps. He would study the game and understand those pitchers, but it was, I mean, those guys are just, it's fun to watch. You're still a fan, even though you're a player up there, but you're still a fan, and you love to watch these guys and see what they can do, and just in awe of some of the things they do sometimes.
Now let's see if you remember this stat. Now, I don't know if you still know about this to this day, but tell me if this is true or not. In 2001, you fanned 8 straight Brewers when you were with the Royals, and 11 in 5 2/3 innings. Obviously, you guys lost 5-2 that day, but get this. Only Nolan Ryan did it twice. Ron Davis and Roger Clemens struck out 8 before. This was in your time now. I don't know if it's done since then, but it was, besides those 3, you were the only other one to do it 8 times in a row. Do you even remember that stat?
Oh, I do. I remember it. It was and it was weird because I think it was a Friday night. I was starting that. It was either Thursday or Friday. I don't remember, but I was starting that game, and the lights went out in Milwaukee. Some transformer blew or something, so I'd only pitched 1 inning, and we were kind of scrambling to figure out the rotation and what they were going to have to do to get somebody to fill in. And I told them, I was like, look, it's just like a glorified bullpen. I didn't throw many pitches. I can, just let's treat it like a bullpen. I can pitch in 2 days. And so they said, so they were agreeable to it. And so then I went out on that Sunday, which turned out to be Father's Day, and struck out the first hitter, walked the next hitter, but then struck out the next 8 until the hitter I walked lined out to break up the streak. And so I had no idea after the game that I had tied a record. I had no idea that I'd struck out 8 in a row. And so Jamie Quirk was our bench manager, and he came in and handed me the scorecard. And I thought it was like a cruel joke because we had lost, and I wasn't happy that we had lost. And it kind of ticked me off. And I'm like, what kind of joke is that? I mean, that's not like you. And he's like, you have no idea, do you? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, you just tied Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens for striking out 8 in a row. And so I had no idea, and they had kept a ball from that game. So I do have a ball from that game that my teammates signed the scorecard, and I've got that framed up in my man cave.
My bad. Doug Fister, I believe they said, if that's accurate, broke it in 2012.
He struck out 9 in a row afterwards. So I don't have, at the time I was tied for the record, but it has since been broken. Yes.
That seems hard to believe. Who would have thought you would end up on history? And then the next one I'm going to ask you, let's see if you think I know where I'm going with this. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this. And you can tell me about this too. Unfortunately, you were with the Athletics in 98, and you faced off against the Indians.
And I didn't get an out.
Yep, you did not get an out.
8 runs.
You became the first pitcher in the history to go against 8 batters and not get an out. Now tell us about that.
It was a leadoff walk and 7 singles. It wasn't like it was getting knocked all over the ballpark. It was just everything I threw up there, they hit, and it was a base hit or it found a hole or something else. And that was a funny story about that. My mom and dad were at that game in Cleveland, and so they're down the tunnel after the game, and I walk up to my dad, and he just looked at me and says, well, it's a good thing I didn't go get a beer. I'd have missed your pitch tonight. So
that's right.
But it was just other days you go out there and throw good pitches. They hit line drives right at people, and you get out of innings. And then that game, there was nothing in the world that was working for me that game.
What a tangled web we weave, though. Two things of history, one on the one end, one on the good end, and one on the bad end. How weird is that?
Yeah, I just try to focus on the good ones. I remember those. I have stuff I don't keep the scorecard from the one where I didn't get an out.
I know, right? Jeez. And like you said, that was Art Howe, who's all-time good manager too, like one of the greats. That unfortunately took you out that night.
Yep. And I don't blame him.
Actually, no. He should have honestly just kept you in. You could have gotten out of it. I mean, you guys needed pitching, right, that day. So, I mean,
and that's what's awful when you come out. It's not about your stats or anything else, but you sit here and think about the stress you just put on the bullpen, because now they're going to have to
Exactly.
do an
Right.
entire 9 inning game, and you
Right.
just hope the guy that comes in long relief can get you 4 or 5, and kind of save some of the bullpen. But yeah, so as a matter of fact, after that, they sent me the bullpen for the remainder of the year. I was pitching out of the bullpen the remainder of the year for that after that outing.
So now, obviously, you had a decent career. So now I got to ask you. You kind of got into it a little bit. I want to know now, just like I ask all my pitchers, who gave you the most fits as a hitter, and who did you have success the most with?
I always say Jay Buhner was my kryptonite. I think he had 3 or 4 home runs off of me. It seemed like every time, even if he was on the DL and he found out I was pitching, he was coming off the DL so he could hit off of me.
Mm.
But that was a great lineup. The Mariners lineup was loaded, but he gave me fits. And some other guys that I did pretty well against. Derek Jeter seemed to do well against him. He didn't strike out a lot. He just hit the ball right at people and got him out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of some other guys that Frank Thomas. I had some good success against Frank Thomas. But it's the guys that Jay Buhner. It's just, it was one of those things that it didn't matter. It was like he knew exactly what I was throwing, when I was throwing it, where I was throwing it, and whenever he came up, it was a mental game too, because then when he comes up, you're thinking about the 2 or 3 at bats he had before you. What could you do differently? And then you're not pitching to your strengths and you make a mistake. And so, and it's, whereas if you have success against a guy, you feel like you can throw anything up there and get him out. And so it's amazing how mental of a game baseball is.
I also asked my guests that are pitchers too, asked as well, what was your pitching repertoire and what was your go-to pitch mainly to get people out?
My mainly was a fastball. There was something deceptive, and I'll never forget. It was Moises Alou in spring training one day. I had a ball get away from me up and in on him. I wasn't trying to go up and in, and came back into a fastball and struck him out. And he told me after the game, he said, the ball just gets on you. It's something about the way you deliver it. I'm not sure what it is, but your 90-91 looks 95-96 at the time, whatever velocities were. So
Right.
knowing that was something that I really wanted to use to my advantage. And so, but really, honestly and truly, it wasn't until I got to Kansas City and I learned a changeup when I was able to develop an off-speed pitch. That was when I really started to have a career that was going to span more than just a couple months or something. So when I was able to have an off-speed pitch that I could throw in hitters counts, that's when I really started to have a little bit of success.
Now, you obviously pitched in a lot of different ballparks. Some to this day aren't around. And obviously, unfortunately, you didn't get to pitch in some new ballparks that are out now. What was your favorite ballpark to pitch in, and what was your least favorite one to pitch in?
I loved pitching at Old Yankee Stadium. It was just the history that's there. Plus at the time they had the fences were farther back in the alleys and center field, so it tended more to be a pitcher's park unless you hit it down the lines. And so, loved pitching at Yankee Stadium. I didn't like pitching at Wrigley, that mound, and Fenway. The parks were great, but felt like their mounds were flat when I would pitch there. So I didn't feel like I could like it was a normal mound. It's just the way I felt about it. Nothing wrong with the fields themselves. It's just it didn't feel right for me. But Safeco was a great place to pitch. I got to pitch at Old Comiskey before they tore it down. I'm sorry, Tiger Stadium, Old Tiger Stadium, before they tore it down. And so that was a really cool experience playing in the last series there at Tiger Stadium. But you go to all these places and they're in such good shape, and the fans are it's fun to go to a place where you're, especially on the road, and you pitch well and they're real quiet and they really can't say anything to you. And there's nothing better than pitching on the road and it's a silent stadium because you're doing your job on the field. And so, and I've always loved Kauffman Stadium. I've always thought something was special about that place with the fountains out in the outfield. And I just thought that it was a great atmosphere for baseball.
So now, um, pitching coaches. I know you've had plenty in your day. Who helped you along the way, and who did you learn from the most?
Well, and I try to tell this to the guys when I was coaching baseball in high school too, that you get something from every coach, and that's the truth. So, all of my pitching coaches, I got something from,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of those things where they would work with me and talk to me about things, and it was you filter the things that work for you and put and keep those and use those, and the things that don't work, you remember them because you may have to go back to it, but it's something that maybe you try something different. But I'd probably say Brent Strom, when I had him in Kansas City, was probably the most effective pitching coach I had. And Rick Peterson, when Oakland, was another good one. But those two kind of stand out. But I would say Brent Strom was probably the best pitching coach for me.
And what about other pitchers? Because I know you learned a lot. Like you said, it's same with pitching, same with
Right.
pitching coaches. You had you shared the room with a numerous amount of pitchers, either bullpen or a starter. I know you had to take in a lot. Who'd you take in the most from?
Well, Kenny Rogers helped me a ton, and Tom Candiotti. I mean, he was a knuckleballer, but he still understood the game and how to pitch. But Kenny Rogers is the one who, because I always threw a four-seam fastball. I never up that point because I just thrown hard and was able to throw it by guys. I'd never really thrown a two-seam fastball, and so I got with him because he had a great sinker. And so I figure if I'm going to go learn a pitch, I'm going to go learn from somebody who does it real well. And so, and talking to Kenny Rogers, he really helped me develop a two-seam fastball. And so, learn from him. And then with my changeup, Doug Jones, who was on another team or was with Oakland, I learned a changeup from him. And he was real beneficial in helping me learn, a grip that fit my hand because he had a great, devastating changeup. And so it was good. You try to find pitchers that match your style and find what works for them, and then and see what you can learn from them.
Now, I want your honest opinion, just like I ask every ball player I had on here, and ask them to give me their opinion on it too, because I'm entitled to mine. You're entitled. Everybody else is. The steroid era. You pitched in it. You know about it. Everybody knows about it. What is your opinion on it? Because steroids honestly weren't. They didn't really. Yes, they tested for it, but it wasn't really frowned upon. Basically, if you get what I'm trying to say, in that time,
Sure.
because of what was going on with the McGuire Sosa race, and even Bonds for that matter too. So, what is your honest opinion? Do you think it ruined the game instead of helping the game?
Well, I think that what it did is it wasn't a fair playing field. So it wasn't something that was used across. Everybody was doing using steroids, and so therefore it was the game of baseball was baseball because of steroids. And so I don't think that it was fair in that aspect. So people that were doing the right things, working hard in the weight room, eating right, doing those sort of things. So I don't think it was fair in that aspect. Now, as far as hurting baseball, I didn't like the fact that people were doing steroids. That's just my opinion. But I think at that time, had we not had the home run chase with McGuire and Sosa, I think baseball might not be where it is today because of it. And so I think overall it helped the game of baseball. I don't agree with it. I don't think it should be a part of baseball. I think that takes away from the things that people have to do to work hard to get where they are. And so, but that's just my opinion. And so, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, you did. No,
Yeah.
I agree. I'm in. My opinion too. I didn't like it either, but it is what it is. Is what's happening. Unfortunately, my era that I grew up with will always be known as that. The era you pitched in will always be known as that, and it's something you can't get out of.
Right.
So that leads me to my next question. Your opinion. Do you think those guys will ultimately get into the Hall of Fame?
I do. I think that there's already some players that have been inducted in the Hall of Fame that were known steroid users, and so I don't think that you can exclude some if you've already put some in. So I think once they opened up that option, I think that those guys, if they have the numbers, will probably get into the Hall of Fame.
I want your opinion on this. I think it's pretty shitty, honestly. But with everything going on now with gambling in baseball, do you think it was fair to wait to what Pete Rose in after he died?
Well, I thought that I never thought he was going to get in. I thought that the lifetime ban was going to be a lifetime ban. There was not, I mean, whether you like it or not, or agree with it or not, I thought that it was never going to be taken away. But to wait in the timing of how they did it, I didn't agree with that. I mean, you could have let that man have a little bit of dignity in what he did for his career before he passed away. But at the same time, everybody knows that gambling, you can't bet on your team, whether you're betting for it or not. It was just something that you knew you couldn't do. Um, Now, is that worthy of a lifetime ban? Um, that at that time you knew what the consequences were if you were caught doing it. So um, now, was he a Hall of Fame player? 100%. I mean, without a doubt, he was one of the greatest hitters of all time. And so the fact that um, he won't be able to relish the fact that he's going to get into the Hall of Fame is a little disappointing.
Now, unwritten rules. What do you think about the unwritten rules? Because you pitched it in that era. I played in Little League, which nobody really did that in Little League, obviously. But what is your take on the unwritten rules of baseball? Do you like them?
Well, I think that the game has changed to take away a lot of the unwritten rules. So it used to be, if you look at some of the old footage, going into second base, you didn't have to get close to second base. Your job was to take out the second baseman or shortstop so they couldn't turn a double play.
Mm-hmm.
And so nowadays, you're supposed to slide in, straight into the bag or be able to reach the bag or whatever rule change they make to it, and you can't make any contact with them. And so it kind of takes away from part of the game. Pitching inside now. There are times when you have to protect your players and you throw at guys, but at the same time, it's almost like they've taken away the ability to pitch inside, because if a pitch gets away and you hit somebody, you're automatically ejected almost. And so I thought that most of the guys that I played with and against played the game right, so you never really had to police it that much. Now, if a guy made a dirty play or something like that, then you absolutely had to take care of it yourself if you were pitching in that game. And so I firmly believe 100% in the unwritten rules, and that's one of the things I think is sorely missing from today's game.
2 or 3 more questions, and then I'll let you go because I know you got another meeting, and it's getting late over here too on the East Coast where I'm at. First one is, crap. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, first one is, you obviously didn't pitch in the era of this because it's going to happen now. It's happening in the minors, but it's also going to start next year implementing the automated strike zone, taken away from umps calling balls and strikes. Yeah, the ump's going to be there to call out, which is fine, whatever. But you as a pitcher, do you like that's going to this where it's going to be the automated strike zone, or do you think that it's taking the aspect out of the ump's hands?
Well, I think the umpires have done a better job of I guess you would say, normalizing the strike zone. And so back when I was pitching, you had to know who the umpire was, and this umpire would give you this corner, this umpire would give you that corner. This guy had a high strike, this guy had a low strike, this guy was all over the place. And so you almost had to have a scouting report on umpires to know what their strike zone was. Whereas in today's game, they've gotten very consistent in what the strike zone. Not that they're effective or good at it sometimes, but at least they've normalized the strike zone and what it should be. And so, and back when I pitched, the strike zone was not nearly as high as it is now. If it was at the belt, it was a ball. But they also gave more on the corners when I pitched. And so you could throw a pitch 3, 4, 5 inches off the outside corner, and there's a good chance you could get that called. And so I don't know. I kind of like the human aspect of the game. But I do like the fact of instant replay, that you get a chance to challenge plays that may have a huge impact on the game. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how that works. I haven't kept up with it a whole lot in the minor leagues to see how effective it is. But it might be something that as long as it doesn't slow the game down too much, or interrupt pace of play too much, if it's something where I think I've seen where the batter just taps his head and means he wants to review, and if it's within a few seconds, then by all means do it. but it'll help out because these guys, you don't want an umpire to be the reason why you got sent down because he made a bad call or something.
Now, I know this don't happen too often. It's once in a lifetime freak accident, but it's a two-part question. You obviously being a pitcher, did you have a moment in time where you saw your life flash in the instance? And what do you think baseball can do? The second part is, what do you think baseball can do to help with that regards to, I know it's a freak accident and you don't know when it's going to happen, but what can they do to better protect the pitchers?
Well, I mean, there's really not much you can do. I mean, you're by the time you throw the ball, you're probably closer to 50 feet than 60 feet from the hitter, and so a lot of it is, we spend a lot of time on, when we take PFPs, there were times we take incrediballs and it was just a self-defense kind of deal where they would hit them at you, just trying to keep it from. And if it did hit you, it was a softer ball. But I don't know if there's a whole lot you can do. You've got the way to protect the batter. And unfortunately, I did hit a guy in the face one time, and so and it shook me up as a pitcher. But they've got ways that they can protect the hitters. You can have the face guard come across. You've got the elbow guards, the wrist guards, the shin guards, everything else. But there's not been as much as far as what the pitchers can wear. I know some guys wear almost like a chest pad underneath in case they get hit with a line drive in the chest. But that doesn't really protect your head if you get hit in the head or anything. So I was lucky enough to where I got nicked on the ear one time. Got hit with a line drive in my wrist, but the injuries I had were not, life or death injuries that I would have had. So I don't know what they can do to help protect the pitchers more. I really don't.
Now, you pitched with Kansas City and Oakland, as we all talked about earlier. How close were you? Do you remember, if any, were you close to at all making playoffs with either team?
The 1 year I got the year I got released from Kansas City, they made the playoffs, and so I had a horrible year, but they ended up making the playoffs, and so that was probably the one team that I had a chance to be on that would have made the playoffs. But in the major leagues, I never did pitch in a playoff game or make a playoff run with anybody.
World Baseball Classic. Do you like it? Hate it? Love it?
I love it.
What do you think of it?
I think it's fantastic. And it's kind of like the Ryder Cup of golf for me. It's an opportunity for guys to go represent their countries, and there's guys that play on those teams that aren't necessarily major leaguers that get to play in a very competitive, intense format, and I think it's great for the game. I really love the World Baseball Classic.
Now, there's been talk that it should. Honestly, your opinion, where do you think it should be? Because I think it should be. I think it's fine, leave it where it's at because it's with spring training. But people are saying it should be like around the All-Star break or after the World Series. Where do you think it should be?
I don't think it should be in the middle of the season. There's no way you could. I think you should interrupt the season to have that. And so I think I like where it is now. Most of the guys that play in that are playing some sort of winter ball, so they're in pretty good shape when they're going out there. And so I just think that's one of those things that, as you come into spring training, you want to kind of make sure you take care of those guys and not overuse them too early, like you would any other year, even though they may be in a little bit better baseball shape. But I like where it is now.
I couldn't have said it any better. And like you said, you were a coach. So I got to ask you, when you were a coach, because obviously you're not now, what did you tell your young guys, and how would you help them to this day, if you were still coaching, get to where they ultimately want to be if they want to exceed to the next level?
Yeah, just to know what type of pitcher you are, not to, and make an honest evaluation of that. Not to say that I was a all-star on my 12U team. I mean, I could care less about that. But what makes you successful as a pitcher? And so understand that. Let's pitch to your strengths. Let's work on your weaknesses so that you can become a better pitcher. But ultimately, we're going to know what you do well and we're going to emphasize that to make you the best possible pitcher you can be. And then that comes with hard work and learning the game and understanding the game and kind of being on the same page and knowing a reason for doing things. So it's not just getting a ball and throwing it, but having a purpose for every pitch. And it's really hard for high school kids to understand that. But the ones that do pick that up and understand what type of pitcher they are, and then also being able to focus on pitches, they really start to see success and do well.
So 3-part question. This is the last one, and I'll let you go. 3-part question. First part of the question is you played in 2 different divisions, the AL West and the AL Central. Okay. Tell us about rivalry games, because those divisions have good rivalry teams, honestly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. The second part is, I know it's still early in predictions. Who do you got in the World Series and winning it? And the third part is, we talked about briefly earlier about the game changing, not for the better, but do you see the game ever changing back to the way it was when you pitched?
It's all right. So the first thing is let's talk about the rivalries. So
Yes.
in Kansas City, we played, Minnesota and Detroit, Kansas City and Cleveland were in those. And so a lot of the rivalries were, interdivisional, but you also had the huge rivalry with St. Louis. And so we got to play them in interleague a couple times. And so you could really see the fan base. And it was great because you had the clash of red versus blue when you're at those games. And so those series were a lot of fun to be a part of. In Oakland, between Texas, Seattle, who was else in the division at that time? And Texas, Seattle, us, and I'm trying to think.
Angels.
The Angels.
That was it that I can remember, because Houston was still
Right.
in the NL.
Right. And so it was there wasn't really a real geographic rivalry. We got to play the Bay Series. We got to play against the Giants in interleague, and so that was a lot of fun to have that, to kind of have that after the World Series that they had. And so, but it wasn't like college rivalries as much, or even the Yankee Red Sox rivalries with either one of those teams. So there wasn't the huge rivalries, but there were some. Secondly, who do I think is going to win it? I was just trying to look at the standings right now. I haven't looked in a while. I really just think that as I'm looking through these right now, I think what the Tigers have done and coming around, they're going to be a tough team in the American League to beat. And then I think the Cubs in the National League are going to be tough to beat. I just think that they've seemed to be a little more well-rounded and then staying consistent. I don't think they're real streaky, but it's still way too early to have anybody step out as a forefront winner to do it all.
Right.
And I do not think that baseball is going to ever go back to the way it was. I think that it's so far removed with the way that from the minor leagues down to the into college or even in high school, the game has changed. And so the more that they've gotten into the analytics and the spin rates and the launch angles and the everything else, that they've gone away from the pure baseball that it was 20 years ago. So, but I don't see it going back that way anytime soon.
And for real, this is the last one. Is there anything you could change about your career? What would it be?
Anything I could change about my career? Oh, I'd learned to change up earlier. And so I think that would have been something for me to really extend my career a little bit.
I couldn't have said any better. Now, do you think that could have helped you with injuries if you did that? Do you think
I think so. But I who knows what it could have been, but it would have been something I think that would have lengthened my career had I done that.
Well, there you go. Couldn't have said any better. I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Like I said, do you still want a copy of the episode to share?
Absolutely. Send it to me.
I will certainly do that. And thank you for your time. And I'd love to have you on again if
All
you
right.
want to in the
Yep.
future.
Yep. Just let me know. I'd love to talk baseball.
Definitely. And I will certainly do that. I got your number. And heck, if you still know anybody, I'm always looking for more interviews. So send them my way, please.
I sure will. I sure will. I appreciate it, Byron.
Send them the episode of what I'm going to send you. So yeah, let me know. I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Sounds great.
Awesome. You have a good night. Good luck with your call, I think you said. Good
Yep.
luck.
Yep.
Yeah. So you have a good night. And thank you again for doing this. I'll stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Byron. I appreciate you.
No problem. You have a good night.
Okay. You too.
Blake Stein, everybody, former MLB pitcher of Oakland and St. Louis. Wow. What a great conversation with him. Uh, great conversation as always with my baseball players I have on. Thank you for my loyal viewer for always tuning in, asking his question. I hope he answered it well for you about Ventura, Vaughn, and Cameron. And yeah, what some success he had off of them. Yeah, that's crazy, hard to believe. And then we went into a little bit of history, like off the what history. I mean, one part of history, and then the other was good history, and then the other bad was bad history. So one you couldn't get any better, couldn't the script have been any better than that. But it was a great conversation. I hope you guys tune in to it once it's posted. Until then, till next time, till next week, you guys have a good night. And I'll keep you posted on the next episode, whoever that will be. I don't know yet, so we'll see. And thank you again to my loyal viewer. Please always tune in and share it. I appreciate it. And you all have a good night.